Hello, this is a fuel filler pipe for this bloody car, and this is something I've touched on this in a previous video. Didn't really go into much detail about it, but I'm now at the point where I need to refit it, so I will go into detail about it. As it was fitted, this end goes on the tank, so it's kind of like an oval, and this end actually that end goes on the tank as well, because up there, have I set this camera up right? Yes, that's a tank, that's a saddle tank, and that's the main tank. So the bigger engined injected petrol BXs have that, as does the turbo diesel. None of the others do. So this one's got a bigger range than a smaller engined, more frugal BX like my Mark 1 1.6. That's why it's just got more fuel. It's not more economical, it just has more petrol. It costs more to fill it in the first place. And this goes from that tank there to that tank there. So that tank there is kind of part of the filler up on the wing there. And that's fine. And what had happened with, well, there have been two problems. It fits like this in the arch, we'll have a look at that soon. This end was fitted twisted, like, kind of like that. Which, to be honest, the worst case scenario, it would have been kicking back a bit of petrol when you tried to fill it, potentially. It may have not been any different at all. In fact, I've put fuel in this car and I never noticed that. So I think it was probably here nor there, and it's pointless mentioning it. I may even edit this out. The other thing, bigger problem it had, was that each end, and if you remember, each end had some perishing, which is why I've chopped it off. So that end even more so, but this end here, I don't know if that will show up on this camera, but that is there's a mark there where the Jubilee clip went, and obviously you don't put a Jubilee clip right on the end of a hose. There was a bit more sticking out the end of it, but I had to cut that off because it was split and it was splitting downwards, so I've had to cut it off as far as the split went and then inspected it closely to make sure it's not splitting still. The reason being, people say, oh, well, why don't you just change it? Where are you going to find one of them? It's formed. It's not, it's got a flat bit in it to clear stuff. And it's, I mean, it's not, I could say it's oval that end, but it's probably just a round hose. Anyway, basically I've trimmed it both ends. That end I've trimmed off even more. You can't even see where the Jubilee clip originally went on that end. And that leaves me with a problem, because now, well, it's not long enough. So I need to try and figure out how to make this longer, and I think I've got a plan. I don't know if it will work, but it's worth a go, because in the absence of it working, I'm screwed. Actually, no, I'm not screwed. It's not my car. Yeah, excuse the flickering briefly. This is my plan. This is the original hose. Look, a bit of alloy pipe. So I'm going to chop a bit off, chop this in one of the sections where it's just round, which is pretty much there. And that's it. Everything else is either flattened, curved, formed, whatever. So that's the only bit I can do it in. I'm going to make an extension piece, chop this, and then just extend it. It's not going to look as pretty as it used to, granted. Although if I get cute, I might be able to put some heat shrink on it. Have I got anything that'll fit that? I might have. But yeah, it's not going to look amazing, but needs must. I don't know how much I need, but that would involve measuring it, and I've not bothered doing that. Yeah, hopefully that'll do it. So now I need to cut it about here and just push that in and Jubilee clip it. Don't like cutting things like that, because if I get it wrong, yeah, it's got to be done. And then yeah, that will go in there like that, and that will go in there like that, and that has extended it by this much. But what I'm also going to do, because it's not the tightest fit, that, if I'm honest, it's not under pressure or anything, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some beads in this, some swages. Yeah, posh. so that it's got something to grip to. And I can do that with a machine. Well, it's not a machine, it's just a little handheld thing, which I already have set up. And this is not because I'm organised. This is because this was already out because I was doing a customer's car. But yeah, basically, you pops that in there. You do this up. You turn the handle. And you do it up a bit more. And you turn the handle. You do it up a bit more. And you turn the handle. And so on. And so on. And so on. And so on. And there we have a bead. Something for it to grip. Now, if you want to be really posh, you could trim off that excess bit, but I'm not going to be, because I'm not posh. Now, this isn't an expensive piece of kit at all. You can probably buy it off Wish. There we go, a joiner. And then this simply goes in there. And that simply goes in there, and I have restored my length problem. Shut up. There we go. I'll just do whatever I need to do with that. But yeah, that'll work. It dawned on me that the fuel tank had a family of woodlice in it. Well, I say a family, extended family, like multiple generations. So there's a saddle tank here, and I thought, oh, what if there's woodlice in that as well? So potentially going to make a mess, but I hope not, because it is all downhill. So in theory, that should be empty. There's nothing coming out the bottom of that. You've got to be thorough, you see. You've got to be thorough. I don't know about work cleaning it, and then hooked it all back up, put some fuel in, and more woodlice go in. Never thought I'd say that. Yeah, no, I can't really set the camera up to show you exactly what I'm doing. But yeah, so this is the fuel pump setup. So I know, don't, that is horrible. Ugh. Yeah, don't judge it. That is just kind of what I've had to do. The one from the fuel filter is all right, but oh, and I'm missing a Jubilee clip because I ran out of them that size, you know, because I was prepared. I don't like the fact that the exhaust hanger is smack bang in the middle of them either, but it's kind of where it was before. So, I mean, it's safe. It's just ugly. And now the spare wheel cradle's hanging down. But yeah, I need to adjust my camera. With all that in place, I need to put the filler neck back in, set the distance and everything, do all the Jubilee clips up, and in theory then I can put fuel in it, and then after a couple more bits of trim I can put the wheel back on, and that, I'd need to get this thing off the ramp basically, make it mobile, so while it won't be finished, I'll be able to put the wheel back on there, and on this side I think I can put the wheel back on? Yes, yeah, put the rear wheels back on. That would be nice. And I've just got the steering rack, the coolant, the exhaust, and yeah, great. Right, she's in. I've got to be honest, it's not the prettiest thing I've ever done, but quite often when you're working on cars like this, you end up with something fairly unpretty because you're trying to make something that a manufacturer made. They made a part that could do 3 different things. I've got to make something that can extend that and make a pipe come down to that pump and have it go through an angle and have it drop sizes. And there probably are neater ways of doing it, but with the resources that I have at the moment, that is about as good as I can get it. And it's fuel tight now, which is a bonus. There's no perishing in it, which is another bonus. So that there is largely good. I just need to put the bump stop back on. There are 2 bump stops on the BX axle, but I don't know if there's any point putting it back on because it's a bit tomatoed. So a little while ago, you might have remembered me having fun and games with the steering rack gaiter on Tomato, or Professor Tomato. I filmed it and I said this is why I fitted this one, because the other one that you might have had on the car fitted originally is no good, it binds up and blah blah blah. And then I proceeded to fit my spare hen's tooth, otherwise known as a BX power steering hardy disc, to the rack, and just operated it back and forth. And then when I went all the way around, I discovered that the gaiter bound up and it was way too big. See? There it is. And then you keep going and oh no, it's binding up, and I can't demonstrate it easily because the ram is in the way, because I've disconnected the ram. But yeah, basically it's binding up, riding up, it's still too big. It does not fit one bit. I have since been on the internet and I found this. It is plastic. It is it's an aftermarket gaiter, but I'm hoping that this will actually do it. Now, I'm still not convinced it's going to crush down enough, because that goes right way up. Almost to the point where you think, should that go that far up? Is there a spacer missing or something? I don't think there is. It's possible also that because it's got a plastic steering rack gaiter, that actually acts as a bump stop. It's possible that, you know, once this is all fixed in place, you can't compress that. Whereas the rubber kind of deforms and bunches up on itself. This, you notice the little ribs in there? It's like big one, little one, big one, little one. And then the ends are designed so they sort of, they fold inside themselves. So it does go down pretty small. Does it go that small? I don't know. And as I say, it's not an issue that it doesn't bend. I mean, it does actually bend okay, but if you had it on a car where the steering rack had a steering arm coming out the end of it and it was doing this as you drove down the road, it would rip in no time. But it isn't, because on these cars, it stays straight. It's only the end bit that changes. So I'm going to try and get this gaiter off that I lovingly fitted the other day. I didn't explain what I did with the fitment side of it, but I can show you. Because if you remember, I goes, oh, it's too big, it doesn't fit, blah, blah, blah. And then everyone went in the comments and went, oh, you changed it round, you put it around. But I hadn't. I tried it both ways round. But the difference is that this gaiter, it's different size either end, and the standard one isn't. It's the same either end. I don't know why. So it's the tight end that was actually binding up. Right, so I've got the old one off, or the new old one. Plastic, rubber. Bit of a design difference. The rubber in my hand compresses this much. So I don't know how much this much is, but it's about that much. Whereas the plastic, yeah, it's a fair bit. I can't really do it one-handed, but it's a fair bit smaller. I wouldn't say it was, it doesn't look like it's that much smaller, but also, right, I'm sorry. Also, look at the size difference there. That end, it's bigger. That end's the same. That end, for inexplicable reasons, is bigger. That's garbage, basically. That is no good. So the question is now, how the bloody hell to get that over there?
8 hours later.
Ah! It's still... It's still no good. It's got the proper... It does go down better. Like it goes down to there. But that just... The piston here on the ram, it's shiny up to here. So that is its normal operating window. You just can't go down that far. Nothing is easy with this damn car. I never had this problem before. I genuinely haven't. I mean, I've fitted those rubber ones before and I've never encountered this. I've had it on Saxos, and you have to use the original one on those, the proper one. Otherwise they last 5 seconds, but I need to do some research, I think, because this is, I mean, it's on, It's better than the one that was on it, but that is still going to get wrecked. So, right, I'm going to go home and do some research. Time for a quick update. It's the end of another day, not the day that you think this is, because I'm filming it on the same camera, same film, same clothes, but different day. Continuity. Giving you an update on the steering rack on Tomato. So I've had to do something to it, which I'm not really mad about. I shall show you. Well, in actual fact, I'm being a little negative on something that is actually a positive thing, really. So I've fitted the plastic gaiter, and I've spent some time speaking to be honest with you, I don't really get advice on these cars from many people, because I've been bitten so many times by bad advice. So I kind of think, well, if I don't know something, I'll figure it out myself. But there are a couple of people whose opinion I trust. One of whom is Chris, aka Adventures in Rust, who I've suggested you watch before if you like sweary bus videos. And he said kind of what I was assuming anyway. But I mean, I messaged him and said, what's the crack with this gaiter problem, with it binding up? Because the rubber one was just riding up on top of the rack and it was getting mashed and cut and everything like that. And I said I found this plastic one and thinking I'm onto something, when he knew about that one already. The BX one he thinks is shorter than this and doesn't bind up, because this plastic one still does. But that doesn't make a lot of sense in a way, because if I fully extend this one, just quickly, just to show you, it's on a bit of a stretch. Yeah, that's fully extended. So, yeah. So basically, I've changed something. I've decided to make this. So it might look factory actually. It's not. What it is a piece of silicone hose that's been cut down the middle. Kind of like, you know, it's a piece of this stuff, 19mm silicone hose. Slot down the middle, wrap it around the piston, and then put 2 layers of heat wrap on it to stop it coming off again. And that is a limit stop. So basically, it's not limiting the rack by this much. It's about that much, because this much of the rack wasn't actually being, or RAM, sorry, wasn't being used. This is limiting the RAM. It's not actually limiting the rack, but basically you go like that, and then just as the gaiter is about to get all twisted and destroyed, it stops. Just in time. It's not an ideal thing, because it means you're going to have more travel one way than the other. But the alternative is that it tears through these. There are more than one type of rubber gaiter. This one here, this is an SKF unit, and this is 10 ribs, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Apparently there is a 9 rib one, a brand that I won't say the name of, because I don't want to get into trouble, but I've used those before for CV boots, and they last a year. They're awful quality rubber. You can buy them at other places. Yeah, they've got 9 ribs, so they're slightly shorter than these. They still suffer the problem, just not quite as bad. The Moog ones, which I've got, God knows where they've gone now, they're basically the same as this. You take them out of the box, they're identical visually, so yeah. And then the others have got more. Some of them got like 13 ribs. They're never going to fit. So you've got this plastic one here. This is as small as I can get. I can't find anything else that compresses smaller than that to fit this car. And I've fitted this limit stop so that it doesn't get eaten, so it doesn't get destroyed. If I fit it to the car and that is a real problem, if it's really noticeable that it's got less travel one way than the other, I don't really know in the real world how it's going to affect it, then all you need to do is get a sharp blade and go like that, and that can be taken off in situ. You don't have to take the rack out, you can just cut it off. So it's fully reversible. Chris did have the idea of welding up a couple of the teeth on the rack to stop it going over too far, but of course that's not reversible. So this is reversible. So if we find that this is too much, we can ditch it. It's not all bad. This is the old engine mount. Look at that. That's come up all right, isn't it? Pressed the new bush in this morning. Only took me an hour to get the old one out because it can't be pressed because of the shape of the mount. It has to be cut. And it was rusted in. That was fun. And then I've also got hanging up, I put a new bush in this, which is the yoke that goes on the back of it, and then I gave it a rub down and a lick of paint just for no real reason, just to be a tart. So just waiting on some coolant hoses for it actually, some heater hoses and bypass hoses to go at the top. We've got a couple of silicone ones coming to replace the old rubber on these. I haven't put anything back in yet because I'm waiting for those, because the access is really good with everything out the way. So it's annoying they haven't come yet, but I'm hoping they'll come tomorrow, because then I'll crack on with this tomorrow. As soon as those hoses are here, I can chuck them in and I can start throwing a lot of it back together. I haven't pushed the bushes into the wishbones yet. That's the only thing I could do that I haven't done. So I'll probably do that first tomorrow. But yeah, I can make quite a bit of progress once those hoses are here. Get this bloody thing off the ramp. Because I mean, then there'll be a bit of a pause between it coming off the ramp and then work resuming on it, because I've got a lot of other stuff to get through. It's really held me up, that one. It's gummed the ramp up a bit, and I've not been able to get other jobs in to work on them, and everything's kind of fallen behind, and I'm now miles behind everything. So nobody's fault. It's just one of those things, isn't it? My rant video you'll have seen. Yeah, I can't hate it. It's a BX16 valve. I love BX16 valves, but yeah, it's been a fight, this one. So James said to me last night, it'll be a different car when you get it back, you know. It'll drive a lot better. Hit bloody better, dude.